I try to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. That you give no reason why you make me work so hard. That you give me, know that you give me, know that you give me, know that you give me, know. So I hear you calling, oh baby, please give a little respect to me. And if I should falter, would you open your arms out to me? We can make love, not war, and live at peace with our hearts. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. What religion or reason could drive a man forsake his lover? Don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no. So I hear you calling, oh baby, please give a little respect to me. To me. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. That you give no reason why you make me work so hard. That you give me, know that you give me, know that you give me, know that you give me, know. So I hear you calling, oh baby, please give a little respect to me. I hear you calling, oh baby, please give a little respect to me.
What a difference a day makes. 24 little hours brought the sun and the flowers where they used to be rain. My yesterday was blue, dear. Today I'm part of you, dear. My lonely nights are through, dear. Since you said you were mine, what a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can be stormy. Since that moment of bliss, that thrilling kiss, it's heaven when you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Energy Day 2024, hosted by the Polish Electricity Association, PKEE. My name is Dave Keating. I'm a journalist based here in Brussels. I'll be guiding us through today's conversations, which I think, as a lot of you know, are coming at a really pivotal time. And that's why we've seen such intense interest in this event. As people come in here, I think the seats are pretty much full in here, but a reminder, there are more seats up above in the balconies. So why is this such a crucial time? Pardon that. Why is it such a crucial time for EU energy policy? There's two reasons. One is that we're starting the new EU legislative term. That began last week, actually, because we now have the Commission fully confirmed. The new commissioners have taken their offices, and President Ursula von der Leyen's second term is now well underway. And they're going to be working on the first items that are going to be on their agenda, notably the upcoming Clean Industrial Deal. Now, at the same time, Poland is preparing to take over the rotating presidency of the EU Council of Ministers on January 1st. We know that competitiveness is a key concern of both the Commission and the Polish presidency following the delivery of Mario Draghi's competitiveness report to the Commission this autumn. And this will have big implications for the energy sector, particularly for the necessary reforms that it will involve. At the same time, policymakers are seeking to deliver on other key goals, such as sustainability, economic security, open strategic autonomy, and fair competition. Also, creating the energy union and reducing energy independence on Russia are key goals. So today we're going to hear about what the coming months are going to bring for EU energy policy, both for the Polish presidency and for EU lawmakers. We'll also have a presentation from Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, and we'll have two panel discussions on the Clean Industrial Deal and energy storage. So to get us started, I would like to introduce Dariusz Marzek, President of the Management Board of PKEE and PGE.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, honorable members of the European Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you on behalf of the Polish Electricity Association on our annual Energy Day. I'm delighted to see so many of you gathered today representing various institutions and member states, business, media, world of science, think tanks, and grateful for the presence of all of you. But at the same time, please allow me to extend in particular warm thank you and welcome for a few special guests which are just coming. First of all, Mrs. Paulina Henning-Kloska, Minister of Climate and Environmental of the Republic of Poland. Thank you very much, Mrs. Minister. Perfect timing for coming. Mrs. Marzena Czarnecka, Minister of Infrastructure, of Industry of Republic of Poland. Welcome, Mrs. Minister. It's a privilege to welcome you, both of you, in our event, and we are happy to hear some insights and thoughts from your area of activity and your views on the future of the energy sector in Europe and energy transformation in Europe. Let me also welcome Minister Wojciech Wrochna, responsible for the nuclear energy in Poland and the plenipotentiary of this infrastructure security for the Republic of Poland government. Mr. Minister, welcome very much. And there is a few other ministers. Mr. Boris Budka, member of the European Parliament. Welcome. Mrs. Ditil Jul Jorgensen, Director General for Energy and the European Commission. Thank you. We had a pleasure to meet you in Warsaw recently, so welcome and nice to see you again, and happy to hear from you today. Mrs. Nicola Pochettino, I'm not sure whether, am I Mr. Pochettino? I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing it Italian well, but sorry about that. I'm not very familiar with the Italian director for the energy projects in European Investment Bank. But last but not least, Fatih Birol, Executive Director of International Energy Agency. Is it? Also, great welcome for the head of Polish transmission network and Polish operator, Mr. Grzegorz Onichimowski. Thank you for coming, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, what makes this event so extraordinary is that it's not that some unexpected things are happening, as you can see. That's very special, and you're never able to plan for things like that. But it's not only this. It's a very important moment because it's if I calculate this rightly, is the 6th working day of the new European Commission. And we are in the eve of the Polish presidency in the European Union. And all of this together brings us to the very important moment that the priorities of the new Commission and work plan for the new Commission will be established under Polish and together with the Polish presidency, which makes this time very special. But it's not only this. It's already almost 20 years of Polish presence in the European Union. And I have to say, not in all areas we have been as successful as we dreamed when entering European Union, but despite those issues, we face a lot of challenges, including decarbonization, but Poland has always been a proactive participant of European Union, and we are trying to shape the energy policy for Europe. From the idea of energy union, reduction and reducing dependence of Russia, through joint gas purchases, to establishing the modernization fund within the ETS system, and creating the just transition fund for coal-dependent regions, and these were all ideas invented in Poland. So really proud of it, and we intend to continue proactive approach in European Union and being in the driving seat for the new regulations and new developments. In this context, I believe there are 3 very important critical issues which we should discuss today. The first of them is future path of decarbonization. Between 22 and 23, just last 2 years, Polish public sector power installations, Polish public installations decreased emissions by 23% and heat plants by 16%. In 2010, the share of coal in electricity production in Poland was about 90%. Today, it's decreased to 60%. It's still a long way before us, but we believe that we are going in right direction. In just last 5 years, the capacity installed of wind farms and solar installations in Poland increased from 7 gigawatts to 30 gigawatts, more than 4 times within the last 5 years. So we are investing heavily in the renewables, but it's not all we have to do. While those figures are impressive, it will not be possible to maintain such path indefinitely. And in addition, we cannot rely on small, decentralized renewables only. We will also need large-scale projects. For example, offshore wind farms in Poland, they are currently under development, and we are planning to develop some like 7 gigawatts of this capacity in the Baltic Sea within next 6 to 7 years. We invest very heavily in power grids. That would be one part of today's panel, and President Monichimowski will describe it more, but we are investing very heavily in power grids and energy storage at the same time to ensure the stability of the system and not compromise energy security. We need to invest in modern gas power plants to make those investments possible and cost efficient. We need capacity mechanism, and that's a very important regulatory issue we need to address within next decade. Next problem is technological neutrality. There is an idea that Poland has defended and promoted for years now. Thanks to Mario Draghi report, it finally seems to be at the center of policymaking in Brussels. So rightly so, in this the best recipe for accelerating the energy transition cost effectively and in the socially acceptable way, using all available solutions while stimulating innovations and development of new technologies. Last but not least, it also allows us to fully take into account and address all the differences between member states. We have different paths to decarbonization and different starting points, and this transition has to be fair and has to include and has to understand the different starting points and the different specifics of the member countries. And then, very important, and I think the most critical element of our discussion is the financing. From the 30s to 50s, Europe needs to invest trillions of euro in the decarbonization and in infrastructure to achieve the climate targets. The investments on power grid will require on average about 100 billion euro annually. So it's quite difficult to imagine that we'll be able to pass those costs on our customers. In addition to that, we need to remember that so many very important things is happening around Europe. We have developments in the United States of America. We have the developments on the Ukraine. We have instability in many regions, and the question is whether the war in Ukraine is something really we need to consider. And we, as a Poland, we are the border country, and the Russian rockets are landing on our soil and in our country. Hopefully, accidentally, but it still is happening. So how about defense capacity of Europe? How about how we going to spend money within next decade? And what are our priorities? What we believe is the most important now for the Europeans? What would be the competitiveness of the European industry, having in mind the scale of the investments which are necessary to achieve such ambitious targets? Whether those investments will impact the competitiveness of the European economy, whether they make the electricity price affordable for Europeans. Please remember that we are doing all of this not for just solely for the reduction of the emission. We are trying to make Europe a better place for living, but also for working. So we have to keep in mind about competitiveness of the European industry and about affordability of the electricity for the Europeans. And that's something we need to have in mind once we are talking about path, about costs of investments, and how we will do and how we will proceed with the energy transformation. The costs of the decarbonization just in Poland, just the heating system in our country, and we are the biggest, as a PGE group, we are the biggest central heating operator in Poland. We have high pressure, high temperature systems, and the cost of adapting those systems to the new EU regulations is estimated roughly around 100 billion euro. The question is, can we pass those costs to our customers? I believe that we won't be able to do so. So that's something which we need to consider, and that's something which we need to make to have in mind once discussing the potential solutions and way of financing those investments. The adequate financial support for the energy sector in the transformation, including public funds, is vital. This should be provided, among other things, in EU multi-annual financial framework for years 28 to 34 and modernization fund. That's the critical to achieve those targets. Also, we need to make and to allow non-discriminating access to financing for the investment in the energy sector. Transition is a key, but non-discriminatory access to the financing is critical for this. This is particularly important for energy companies, including the district heating sector, which have a large share of carbon-intensive assets. The sustainable finance framework should facilitate and not block investments in the green transition. With the support of financial institutions, in this context, the Commission's announcement of the planned simplification of the regulations as well as reduced administrative burdens is very, very important. Let us remember that the energy transition and all our efforts must be inclusive. This transition is not about lowering emissions, but about technology, energy mix, and it's first and foremost about people, and it's about people and about competitiveness of the European economy. And it should ensure that everyone has access to clean, competitive, and affordable energy. We have to deliver this, and we are determined to do so. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very pleasant day, very interesting discussion. Looking forward for the panelists and their views during the upcoming panels. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marzek. Next, I would like to welcome to the podium Paulina Hennig-Kloska, Minister for Climate and Environment for Poland.
Ladies and gentlemen, ministers, members of the European Parliament, distinguished guests. I would like to thank Polish Electricity Association for this invitation. I think it is a great initiative to discuss challenges and opportunities for the EU energy sector on the eve of the Polish presidency in the EU Council. It is a true pleasure for me to contribute to that discussion. As you all know, start of our presidency will fall on a rather difficult time, with war in Ukraine, migration pressure, ailing EU economy, and the risk of trade wars. Next couple of years look rather challenging. Also, energy and climate sectors with high energy prices, Russian fossil fuels still reaching EU countries, and dramatic consequences of the climate change look increasingly problematic. Ladies and gentlemen, given the difficult landscape, let me please name just a few goals that we will try to work on during the Polish presidency. First of all, we still need to face consequences of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. and work on increasing energy security in Europe. With almost 3 years into the war, it is a high time to close EU market for Russian fossil fuels. I hope we will be able to do that in the coming months. We also need to help Ukraine to rebuild and decentralize its system and to get through the coming winters. Polish companies already helped to increase export of electricity to Ukraine from this winter, but the process of rebuilding the system will take many years. We also cannot forget about our own energy system and need to step up efforts in protecting European critical energy infrastructure, including in the Baltic Sea. Another big challenge is the worsening condition of the EU industrial base. This is why one of the priorities of the Polish presidency will be competitiveness of EU economy. To address that, we need to tackle of issue of high energy prices, which contribute to high cost of production and high cost of living, making people question the achievements of EU energy and climate policies. People must see the benefits of EU policies of their bills. To help them compete with global counterparts, we must also limit the burdens on companies and make systems like CBAM and ETS work better and in their interest. Therefore, we look forward to the Commission's Clean Industrial Deal package, which we will be pleased to discuss and advance in the Council. Finally, we need to focus on the consequences of the climate change and protect better European citizens against severe weather conditions and emergency situations. This is why, together with the Commission, we will work on the EU climate adaptation plan to manage climate risk in a more coordinated way. Achieving all these goals will depend, however, on support of the EU citizens, and they are very often victims of anti-EU propaganda, which make them question EU policies, especially in energy and climate. This is why Polish presidency will also try to advance. At the EU level, the fight with climate and energy disinformation campaigns. We cannot allow EU adversaries to manipulate our societies and derail our actions on the path of the energy transition and decarbonization. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges ahead of us are huge, but together we can try to overcome them. I wish you fruitful discussions and count on your support and cooperation during next 6 months. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Henning Kloska. Next, I would like to welcome Marzena Czarnecka, Minister of Industry in Poland.
And not infrastructure, just industry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy that I'm here. We have like a big days and the big presidency of Poland. We are so happy. We are prepared for that, and we hope that we join something what is really important for Poland, like a climate ambition connected with the practical using. What does it mean? We are so happy that Draghi just printed his competitiveness report, because we believe in Poland that competitiveness will be something what is really important, not only for industry, but also for, let's say, energy in the industry. Because what we have and what we need, firstly needs sustainable funds. Of course, everybody have to talk about the funds, and we have to find the funds, and we have some funds for the sustainability, but also we need to take care about the social aspect of everything. I am responsible for the coal and also for nuclear, and these are resources and, let's say, research which are really important but really costful. And we believe that we can find the funds, and it help in the social life, and also will help the, let's say, all the society to bring our transformation on the next level. And we can show as a Poland that not only transformation in the financial let's say, aspects was okay, because in the finances, as you know, Poland, we are just on the top level, because we know all the, let's say, kind of the services are really on a high position. And also we will have the same ideas in the energy sector, so we believe that we will be leaders. Of course, the Polish companies which are represented here, like a Tauron, of course, and PGE, there are companies which are, let's say, connected with the Polish state aid, and also the Polish, let's say, state assets. So they will help us, I hope, to do it. And we do it together with all Europeans, and we believe that it will be fantastic 6 months, and it will be fantastic energy transformation for the whole Europe and also for Poland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Sarnecka. Next, I would like to welcome Ditte Juul-Jorgensen, who is Director General for Energy at the European Commission.
Thank you very much, Panie, Panowie, dzień dobry. A real honor to have been invited here to join you in this pre-presidency event. We very much look forward to working with you, so the happiness looking into the Polish presidency is very much shared. In fact, I was in Warsaw last week and had a number of good meetings with your colleagues in the ministries, very constructive, very encouraging, and a good reason for a good beginning of this very, very close cooperation, not least because we see that the priorities are fully aligned. You have underlined very clearly the importance of energy security, security of supply, the importance of competitiveness, our continued engagement with and support for Ukraine. These are also top priorities of this second Commission under the presidency of Ursula von der Leyen that has just been working 6 days, as was also said. And the Polish presidency indeed comes at a pivotal moment. It really is at the very beginning of this new Commission, the new beginning of this legislature, the first 100 days where we have an ambitious programme to deliver, not least in the field of energy policy. And of course, a pivotal moment also for Ukraine, that is looking into its third winter of war, and a winter of war where its energy system is under attack and significantly challenged, and where we are doing what we can to help, as the ministers have also said. So our priorities as a European Commission for this new mandate, competitiveness, economic security, energy security, clean transition, will continue to guide our work and our cooperation with you. Now, if I start with competitiveness, you have referred to the Draghi report that just came out earlier this year, and competitiveness, as analysed and suggested by Draghi, is really a key priority in the Commission political guidelines for prosperity, competitiveness of Europe. And as Draghi has recognised, energy policy are critical components in achieving competitiveness and a better Europe. We need clean and affordable energy. We need secure energy access in order to be competitive. And so for the clean industrial deal that will be put forward within the first 100 days, we're going to be looking also at energy. In fact, we aim to accompany the Clean Industrial Deal with an action plan for energy affordability, really to look at how can we bring down energy costs for European households and European businesses. And of course, without secure supplies, we cannot bring competitively priced energy. We have seen during the crisis how the threats to energy security also brought very high and volatile prices. We know that the Russian aggression against Ukraine and the crisis through the weaponization of energy has really been a challenge for Europe and remains a challenge in terms of our energy cost. So we do need to put energy security, the diversification at the forefront of the agenda. And I think Poland is one of the countries that put security out there before others and that recognize the need to diversify and to build a better energy system for security of supply. When we went into the war, the Russian war in Ukraine, our dependence on Russian fossil gas was about 45%. It dropped to around 15% in 2023. But what we've seen over the last months, over this year, is that there is an increasing tendency. So we do need to address that, and as announced by Commissioner for Energy Dan Jørgensen, he will put forward a roadmap on how to phase out our dependence on Russian energy imports as quickly as possible. We will also look into our security of supply framework. We have learned a lot during the crisis. We need to address the framework and make sure that it aligns with the challenges of today, so we're working on that too. And then, of course, we have to make sure that the transition is also a just transition where no one is left behind. I know that Poland has been advocating strongly for this, recognizing that the circumstances across Europe differ depending on where you are. So we need to make sure that the transition is also just, inclusive, that it serves everyone, and that the benefits are seen and felt by European citizens. So to do that, we will look into a wide range of energy policy areas. We'll be looking into our gas storage regulation that needs to be extended. We'll be looking into infrastructure, grids. We'll be looking into boosting the supply of clean energy, renewable energy, but also in a context of technology neutrality, energy efficiency, investments, and the Citizens' Energy Package, as well as addressing energy poverty and a European affordable housing plan, as the Commissioner for Energy is also responsible for housing. So a very full set of issues ahead of us, and issues where we look forward to working very, very closely with the Polish presidency to advance this common European strategic agenda. So times are challenging. We have a lot ahead of us, but I know that by working together in Europe as Europeans, we can address it. We've seen that during the energy crisis, and we will continue to do that and confirm that. So this underlining from the Polish presidency coming in fully aligns with the overall European interests, so that we make sure that we bring the results that are needed. And with that, thank you very much again for inviting me, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be working with the Polish presidency over the coming 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General. Next, I would like to welcome to the podium Boris Budka, Member of the European Parliament and Chair of the Parliament's ITRE Industry Committee.
Honorable guests, thanks for the invitation, and I feel very happy that today we will discuss in this place, in the center of Brussels, such important issues as energy. And we had opportunity to hear the members of Polish government, so the part of the Council, Commission, and of course on behalf of ITRE committee and on behalf of Parliament, we are ready to cooperate in this next period of Polish presidency to find new best solutions, especially in energy sector. We know very well how important problems we must solve, and I do believe that with Polish presidency and with Brussels experience, we will be managed to deal with all future problems. So I can assure you that as ITRE committee, as a parliament, we are ready to hard work, and I'm very glad that in this very marvelous place I can recognize so many experts in those issues, not only from Poland, but from the other countries, that I do feel that with you, with your competences, with your energy, with your experience, we will be able to build new energy strategy for the whole European Union, and we will be able to make Europe much stronger, and of course we will be able to build very competitive economy. Thanks a lot, and have a good afternoon and evening here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Budka. And now for our final welcoming remark, I'd like to introduce to the podium Nicola Pochettino, who is Director for Energy at the Projects Directorate of the European Investment Bank.
Thank you. Dear ministers, members of parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to address you today, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this necessary discussion. It's been said we are living in extraordinary times. Turbulence from geopolitical conflicts is compounded by the urgent challenges of climate change. These dynamics place unprecedented pressure on Europe's industrial base, supply chains, and energy security, it's been said. They also underscore the necessity and opportunity of accelerating our transition to a green and sustainable economy. And this is needed also to bring down energy prices and to tackle energy poverty. Allow me to reaffirm that the top priority of the European Investment Bank in its strategic roadmap 24-27 is to consolidate our role as the climate bank. In 2023, we delivered robust results, dedicating nearly 50 billion euros, which is 55% of our total lending volume, to climate action and environmental sustainability. This reflects our commitment to the Repower EU plan, for which we pledged an additional 45 billion in the period to 2027. And just in 2023, the EIB approved 21 billion euros of projects under the Repower EU objectives, including offshore wind farms, green hydrogen projects, upgrades to electricity transmission networks. Through the Modernization Fund, which is an EU program to support 13 member states, as you know, to reach their goal of climate neutrality, we help to transform the energy systems. And another initiative, the Just Transition Fund, is critical also to ensure that no one is left behind in this transition. At COP29 in Baku, we launched the Energy Efficiency Initiative for SMEs in partnership with the European Commission and the Solar Impulse Foundation. This effort underpins the green transition while enhancing SME competitiveness across Europe. Still, a lot of our energy efficiency activities are in public and residential buildings. We work with a large number of cities and municipalities. We work with promotional banks, of course, including BGK, and prioritizing social and affordable housing. But I would also like to mention that the EIB is a key investment partner to Ukraine. Right now, and this is just an example because we do much more than that, we are focusing on reinforcing energy facilities in the run-up to the winter, implementing 600 million euros of emergency program to repair infrastructure and supply decentralized generation capacity. There's been a reference already, several references to the Draghi report that recommends to strengthen EIB roles, particularly also in the energy sector. So what are our strategic orientations? Our focus is on areas where the investment needs are greatest, where we can provide additionality and impact. Renewable low-carbon energy, grid infrastructure, energy storage, innovative clean technologies, and energy efficiency initiatives. Because while the United States, China, and Russia benefit from abundant and competitive energy resources. Well, the EU is at a competitive disadvantage. Productivity growth and innovation must therefore be at the heart of Europe's strategy. Our priority should be on least cost, scalable solutions. Technologies like offshore wind, photovoltaic, and grid infrastructure are proven, economically competitive, and ready for immediately scale up. So, what is the EIB support to the carbonization of industry? As with offshore wind, when it was nascent, we are now focused on supporting Europe's technological leadership in the green economy through financial products and advisory services. For instance, for industrial decarbonization, we provide project development assistance under the Innovation Fund, ensuring that projects are bankable and have access to EU funds. We recognize the need for a risk-sharing mechanism to unlock private sector investments. As the overall energy cost, the energy cost profile will move from mostly variable under fossil fuel to mostly fixed as clean electricity becomes the dominant energy carrier. The EIB can play an important role in lowering the cost of capital of clean technologies. So the risk in these investments and therefore attracting private sector investment. We are aiming at lowering energy prices. We also provide equity and venture debt as a comprehensive suite of instruments to catalyze investment in breakthrough technology. We finance renewable energy projects that benefit from contracts for differences under public support scheme, but we see that renewables are increasingly competitive and therefore commercial power purchase agreements are pivotal in integrating renewables into the power markets. Another example, if you allow me, is the wind package, through which we offer innovative financial instrument to strengthen the provision of commercial bank guarantees for companies that supply the components to the wind power industry. Moving to transmission and distribution, we noticed that Europe's energy transition hinges on the modernization of its electricity grids. Investment in interconnectors, digitalization, and storage solutions is critical to integrating renewables and ensuring energy security. So we support cross-border electricity interconnectors, in particular the so-called projects of common interest, which represent the priority infrastructure linking the energy systems of EU countries. And similarly, we keep financing large-scale transmission projects within the countries through corporate and project finance loans, through green bonds, and sustainability-linked loans. But we also notice that as the investment needs are increasing and the borrowing capacity of operators does not increase in parallel, off-balance sheet financing mechanism could unlock additional funding for transmission grid infrastructure, addressing constraints posed by existing debt-to-equity limitations. And similarly, we assist the smaller distribution system operators through intermediate lending, helping them to secure cost-effective financing. Ladies and gentlemen, the transition to a net zero economy is not only a necessity, it is an opportunity. It enhances energy security by reducing reliance on imported fossil fuels, thanks to competitive technologies that can be developed and produced in Europe. Europe can lead the world in clean energy, innovation, and economic resilience. But to succeed, we must, of course, act with urgency, clarity, and coordination. The European Investment Bank will continue to play its role, but achieving these goals require collaboration across governments, the private sector, and the civil society. So together, with Poland, that will assume the EU presidency in January, and with all the EU member states, we can build a Europe that is cleaner, stronger, and more competitive. A Europe ready for the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Pochettino, and thank you to all of our welcome speakers. We're now going to move on to the keynote speech. We're very privileged to have here with us today Mr. Fatih Birol, who is Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. He will be delivering a presentation on why Europe needs a new industry master plan. Mr. Birol.
Ministers, dear member of the ITRI committee and the Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, very good afternoon to all of you. Let me thank our Polish friends and colleagues for inviting me here for this very important meeting. Before I share some thoughts about Europe's competitiveness, may I thank the Polish government and Polish people for their excellent support for Ukraine. International Energy Agency is founded as an energy security organization. And today, dear colleagues, when I look at around the world, there is no more pressing energy security issue compared to energy security of Ukraine and beyond. So many thanks to our Polish colleagues and Polish people. Dear colleagues, I would like to tell you one, in my view, an important statement. When I look at the European economy, European industry, and look at the framework conditions, I think Europe is at a make or break situation today. And the very challenge of the new Commission and the presidency of Europe led by Poland will be, I hope, taking this issue as a priority. So before going to why it's a make or break, I want to go a bit to history. In my view, Europe made 3 historical strategic mistakes as far as the energy sector is concerned. 3 historical mistakes, and these mistakes are preparing the groundwork of why Europe has a major competitiveness challenge today. Number 1 mistake, historical mistake of Europe, over-reliance of a strategic good on one single country, namely reliance on Russia for natural gas big time. In the energy world, there is one magic concept: diversification. Europe didn't do it. And we, as the IEA, has warned Europe several times. My colleagues showed me Financial Times of the year 2004, 20 years ago. The chief economist of the IEA at that time warned the German and the European governments of avoiding over-reliance on one single country for a strategic commodity. This was the first strategic mistake. Second strategic mistake of Europe. 20 years ago, about 30% of European electricity came from nuclear power. But European countries turned their back to nuclear power. Some of them left nuclear power, phased out. Some of them didn't build new nuclear power plants. And very soon, this 30% is coming to 15%, half of it. A major source of electricity generation made at home. This is the second mistake. Third and the final, in my view, historic mistake that Europe did in energy was the following. When you look at today, dear colleagues, of all new power plants built in the world, 60% of them are solar energy. And 20 years ago, Europe was #1 in terms of solar PV manufacturing, #1. But Europe dropped the ball, China took it over, and today China is manufacturing 80% of the solar panels. So these three mistakes, over-reliance of gas on one single country, leaving the nuclear behind us and just reducing the share, and the most important today, clean energy technology, solar, dropping the ball, brought us today here, 20 years later. Now, when I look at in the context of this, we have in Europe 3 challenges. #1, cost of energy. Today, natural gas prices in Europe are 5 times higher than the United States. Electricity prices in Europe are more than 2 times higher than China. How are we going to compete manufacturing sector where the cost of energy is very important, compete with other economic powers? This is challenge #1. Challenge #2, for the tomorrow's technologies, in many of them, we missed the boat. I mentioned solar, but I can put many others there. We are about to miss the chance for wind manufacturing, heat pumps, and others. This is the second challenge we have in front of us. Tomorrow's technologies where we are. And third, our decision-making mechanism in Europe is not as fast as it should be, and compared to other global economic powers, much slower and much less focused. So, high energy cost, especially important for the existing manufacturing industries, such as the iron, steel, petrochemicals, and others, a big disadvantage. Second, in terms of tomorrow's industries, manufacturing, clean energy technologies, we are, in many of them, behind the other economic powers. And third, our decision-making mechanism is rather slow and rather complicated. And in that respect, what we need to do, in my view, is to come up with a new industry master plan for Europe, which will underpin the competitiveness of Europe. It is the reason, I mean, for the new Commission, for the Polish presidency, in my view, it should be a priority. Priority #1, competitiveness. Priority #2, competitiveness. And priority #3, competitiveness. I think these top 3 priorities should be dominating, in my view, all the decisions and the policies we are putting in place. And in my view, dear colleagues, the new industry master plan, very roughly said, should have 2 main blocks. #1, our existing legacy industries. What are we going to do with them? Because there is a big cost gap. How much we produce iron, steel, petrochemicals, and others, compared to China, US, and Middle East. There is a cost gap there. How are we going to bridge that cost gap and avoid the downsizing, relocation of these companies somewhere else, and some bankruptcies? This is the first thing that we have to look into. Here, dear colleagues, I have a good news coming from the IEA's World Energy Outlook. It says that in the next few years to come, looking at the oil and, more importantly for Europe, natural gas markets, under normal conditions, if there are no geopolitical escalation, we will see that the buyers' hands will be stronger and there will be a downward pressure on the prices. Look at the oil markets. Oil prices are $70 despite the major tensions and conflicts in the Middle East. In the past, 1/10 of this tension in the Middle East, we have seen triple-digit oil prices. In terms of natural gas, we are expecting huge amount of LNG coming from US and Qatar, starting from end of next year and 2026, which will make the hands of importers stronger, such as Europe, in terms of natural gas deals. So therefore, the first issue, how we are going to bridge the cost gap for the certain legacy industries is our first job, and we have to make some decisions, which of them we should concentrate, which of them we should support, and unfortunately, which of them we should put aside, that we have no chance to compete with the others. This is the first one. The second one of our industry master plan should be for tomorrow's manufacturing industries. What are we going to do? Because we know, dear colleagues, when we look at the numbers, the next chapter of the manufacturing industry belongs to clean energy technologies, such as solar, such as wind, such as electrolyzers, such as small modular reactors, grids. Europe has to make a granular analysis in which of these technologies Europe has the chance to be an important player. And I am very sorry to say that we are not in a favorable situation now. The other day, I convened a major meeting in Paris on AI and energy. We have invited all the AI companies in the world. When I look at those companies, there were barely any major European companies. Europe has missed the internet revolution and built its national champions. And I very much hope that this time we find the areas that Europe has the chance to compete with the other major players, such as offshore wind, such as grids, transformers, heat pumps, electrolyzers, and others. So this is an area that I believe should build the second part of the new industry master plan of Europe. And these two, how we are going to save some of the legacy industries and how we are going to make some of the tomorrow's industries should constitute the Europe's new industry master plan. I have criticized Europe, but I have to tell you that I know I travel around the world. Europe is still, for hundreds of millions of people, Europe is still source of inspiration around the world. With its democratic values, with its humanitarian values, with its cultural values. We have in Europe a lot of advantages. 500 million population almost, a single market, and a big know-how of our universities, technologies, and others. This is of crucial importance. And Europe has shown again and again, if Europe has a clear policy and united, Europe can make major, major achievements. I give you 2 examples. Number 1, 24th of February, 2 years ago, our energy, big part was cut. But Europe was able to go through this without people are freezing, without our economy is collapsed. We got some bruise here and there, but Europe had a clear plan and followed this, and today, European economy is still some bruises, but still standing strong. And nobody, as some people thought, did freeze. Second big success of Europe, when Europe come together and has a clear vision, is during the COVID-19. Europe was able to have a policy and vaccinated millions of its citizens much before anywhere else. So the issue is, dear colleagues, and my message is today, Europe is facing, in my view, a historical European economy is facing a historical make or break point. We need a new industry master plan, which is the backbone of our economy and our employment. And here, we have to focus on how we keep some of the existing industries, despite the disadvantage of energy costs, and prepare for the next chapter of the industry revolution, namely clean energy technologies. And I believe Europe can do it once again. There are many advantages we have, but many challenges remain. So I wish the Polish presidency and the European Commission all the best for the next critical months and years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borrell. You've certainly given us a lot to think about and to talk about now as we move into the panels, where we'll be discussing some of the issues that we've already heard so much about in these welcoming remarks. Now, this first panel is called Clean Industrial Deal, a Key to Boost European Competitiveness. Before we get started with that panel, we're going to have a video address by Jakub Jaworowski, who is the Minister of State Assets in Poland, to kick us off.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists. When I think about energy and energy policy, I think about 3 things: security, competitiveness, and sustainability. Energy security is one of the key challenges facing Europe. We need to ensure Europe cannot be blackmailed over energy resources supply. In that respect, it is crucial to end any dependence on raw materials from Russia. If Nord Stream gas pipelines had not been built, as Poland suggested many times, maybe the Russian war on Ukraine would not have been even possible. Energy security is also ensuring there are stable energy sources working in the system. These still are often fueled by fossil fuels. Energy security demands we do not discard this argument lightly. Energy prices are one of the main factors affecting business decisions and thereby economic performance. According to Mario Draghi's report, approximately 60% of European companies identified high energy prices as a major obstacle to investment. This is because average European retail prices for industry are 2 to 3 times higher than these same prices in the US and China. Energy transition is very much needed to help stem climate change. The recent disastrous and tragic floods in Poland and in Spain are the best testament to the need for environmental action. This action must, however, take into account the costs of energy. I hope that the Clean Industrial Deal and the recently announced Action Plan for Affordable Energy Prices will ensure the competitive prices for European SMEs and industry, and at the same time enable the achievement of a net zero economy. In the long run, these 3, energy security, competitiveness, and sustainability go hand in hand. But we need to ensure that in these turbulent times of war, the immediate security considerations do not fall victim to even the most noble and sensible long-term objectives. I wish you a fruitful debate and interesting conversation. Thank you.
Now let's start the discussion. I'd like to welcome the panelists up here to the stage to take their seats. We have here with us today Radan Kanev, a Bulgarian MEP who is a member of the European Parliament's Environment Committee. We have Georgios Stasis, who is Vice President of Eurelectric and Chairman and CEO, wherever you like is fine, yep. Chairman and CEO of PPC. We have Valburga Hemmetsberger, who is Chief Executive Officer for Solar Power Europe. We have Giles Dixon, Chief Executive Officer for Wind Europe, and we have Roman Sisko, member of PKEE's Management Board and Vice President of the Management Board of Energa. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. We certainly have a lot to talk about. As was said several times in the opening, I think people are really looking ahead to this clean industrial deal. Everybody wants to know what it's going to be all about. And I haven't heard anyone say they don't welcome this new initiative, but everyone wants to see what it's going to mean, I think, for the particular sectors that they're working in, and also for their particular interests and what they think Europe really needs to solve this competitiveness problem, which Mr. Borrell was just talking about in the keynote address. Radan Kanev, let me start with a question for you. As I mentioned, we're starting the new legislative term now. What are lawmakers in the European Parliament looking for from the Commission in terms of energy and competitiveness, and can that vision be delivered with this new clean industrial deal?
Let's answer very simply. Hopefully, yes. But the main question that you said at the beginning, what is the clean industrial deal gonna be? What does it look like? Is still an unanswered question. We are looking for the first communication of the European Commission on the topic, but positive news from Parliament is we don't stay idle meanwhile. Yes, we prepare our own vision, and here I can say two things. One is that we need to answer the question, is it a deal for European clean tech, or it's a deal for all the European industry, with an accent on the heavy industry, which is obviously struggling to transform in the environment of very expensive energy. And the second question, maybe even more important, is there going to be a deal? Because the Green Deal was not much of a deal. In a deal, you have two parties, and each one is giving something. So we have policymakers and industry, and main question here is there going to be a deal, and what should policymakers provide to industry?
Georgios, let's turn to you next. In terms of what energy companies are looking for right now in utilities, what would you say they're looking for from EU lawmakers generally, and specifically from this clean industrial deal?
Well, good afternoon also from my side. Thank you very much for having me here. First of all, I want to congratulate the organizers for taking the initiative to do this discussion. I'm coming here as PPC, but also as Eurelectric. And being part in this discussion takes us a further step into finding the solutions in these difficult questions. I think that what we are looking forward from, first of all, I believe that we don't have any other way. I mean, we need to find a solution, and it will be imperative to find a solution. And it has been proven that whenever in Europe there are no other ways, at the end, we find our ways forward. I think we have reached a point that we really have reached the limit of so many, different possibilities. The world, as you know very much, is changing so many different ways, and Europe, I can say, is in the center of this. Europe is the biggest consumer by far. is looking the elements moving around it, both geopolitical, technological, and it's the right time to take the correct decisions. I think this Commission will deliver a plan. The Draghi report came in a very good moment to show some direction and to showcase the problems. We agree in many elements in the Draghi report, in some others we don't. We believe that over-regulation is not a correct way forward. But we definitely believe that we need to find clear rules, I would say, and this is the most important thing we are expecting. We are expecting clear rules. We know the way forward. We know that the way forward is, should be targeting clean technologies because of energy security, so becoming more independent, as well as because of economic interest. And we'll have a chance to talk more on those. Thank you.
Valborga, we heard from Mr. Birol's presentation that the situation for European solar vis-a-vis solar globally. As we have this new focus on industrial competitiveness from the Commission, what are you looking for from the perspective of solar power?
Thanks very much, first of all, for having me. Indeed, we heard Fatih Birol saying that solar is, going to be the biggest electricity source going forward, and I think that is one of the things that are very important and good news for Europe's competitiveness, because together with wind, we are also the most affordable electricity source. So this is what European customers, and especially European industry, is looking for. We heard Fatih Birol saying, indeed, that this is, one of the major challenges that we are facing, high energy prices that we still have in Europe, and this is where solar can really have a contribution to Europe's competitiveness. But we need to go faster, and we need to make sure that it is not just about more generation, but that we are adapting Europe's energy system to the new forms of electricity, to solar, to wind, and that needs investments into grids, and that needs investments into flexibility big times. I'm very happy that the next panel is all about storage, so that will be deep dived into. But indeed, he was also mentioning that there was a historic mistake that Europe was making when we were #1 leaders globally when it comes to the production of solar in Europe, and that is something that is putting at this point in time not at a very good position. But when we're talking about solar, what we also need to know is that there's a lot of different parts that we need for our solar system. And what we are still producing in Europe is inverters. That's the brain of the solar system. We're also still producing a number of other things, which is the mounting structures, which is trackers. So when we talk about solar, we should not generalize, and we need to make sure that what we still have in Europe, we're going to keep it. And this is in particular very important, because when we talk about Europe's competitiveness, it is also talking about security of supply, making sure that we will always have the energy that we need available. And that, when we're moving into a new energy system, has to do a lot with power electronics. The wind turbines are using power electronics, solar is using power electronics. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about these power electronics that are powering our future energy system, we're going to produce them here in Europe.
So, Giles, same question for you from the perspective of the wind sector. What are you hoping to see from this new industrial competitiveness focus?
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Fatih Birol, to quote him, said, "We're about to miss the chance of wind manufacturing in Europe." So today we have 250 factories in Europe that are making wind turbines and components for them. And the European Investment Bank, Nikolai, you mentioned the wind power package of last year. That has unlocked many investments in new factories. There are currently 30 new factories in the wind and grid value chain that are under development in Europe, including 4 in Poland, 3 in Szczecin alone, 2 of them from Vestas, making blades and nacelles, 1 from Windar, making towers, and there's another tower factory being developed by Baltic Towers in Gdańsk. So the wind energy supply chain is growing in Europe today. By the end of next year, we will be able to manufacture 32 gigawatts a year of wind turbines. And at the moment, Europe is building 20 gigawatts a year of wind farms. So more than big enough for what we are building at the moment. So that is promising. The challenge, of course, is making sure that the equipment coming out of those factories is competitively priced at prices that developers can afford, and small decisions really matter here. For example, what is the price ceiling going to be in Poland's offshore wind auction next year that will be offering two-sided CFDs? It's very good that the government have now put some proposals on the table. Maybe it's not quite enough, but we have some chance still to discuss the exact level there with the government. We must focus finally on the grid supply chains. If there are bottlenecks anywhere in Europe's clean energy manufacturing today, outside of solar, where I defer to you to comment, Valburga, it's in the transformer manufacturing, switchgear, HVDC manufacturing. This is where the EU and member states really should be prioritizing their investment under the Clean Industrial Deal, the new industry master plan.
So we heard there from Giles some of the Polish activity in terms of wind. Roman, when you're thinking about what's coming in terms of the Clean Industrial Deal, what would you say is needed in order to boost the energy transition in Poland in a way that also boosts competitiveness?
I'm relieved you gave me such an easy one. 2 elements, really. First, I think 2 elements come to my mind to have a sort of a priority to deliver. One is value, and the second one is time, really. When we look at the value, which is we're supposed to look at as commercial companies, there are 2 elements, cash and risk. And I might be forgiven as a person living in a country that has a full-blown war across the border to look at the risk now. Risk is a devilishly challenging idea, really. We have a fluctuation of a stock market, while at the moment the cash flows projected of these companies don't change. It's perception of risk that changes. So from my point of view, important element in energy company is effective risk management. And by risk, it's implied that risk is something adverse, really. I would much more prefer to look at it as volatility rather than risk, because every volatility, apart from adverse elements, brings also the opportunities that can be exploited. And from my point of view, the ability to have a look and clear look at the volatility that is implied in our environment is the really opportunity to develop, and I see this opportunity in Poland. And the second element that I would like to stress is time. Clearly, we need to look in a longer-term view, but apart from the well-known saying that in the long term we're all dead, it's important to have effective execution. Execution now. By now, I mean this year, next year, in 2 or 3 years. So apart from very important challenges and very important objectives of zero emission or close to zero emission in 2050, I would stress the importance of factors that make us able to deliver now. By now, I mean 2 or 3 years. Without that, I'm afraid even under the best circumstances, we won't be able to deliver very ambitious objectives of 2050.
Let's talk a little bit about expectations for the Polish presidency. Radan, this, of course, is a presidency not of your institution, but of the Council. But of course, we know that the presidencies have two functions. One is just chairing meetings of the ministers, but also prioritizing certain subjects. And as we heard from the ministers there in the opening, they will, once the Commission comes out with its clean industrial deal, it will be up to the Polish presidency to shepherd it through that institution. What would you like to see from the Polish presidency in the area of energy that you think would be really critical at this moment we're in right now?
Oh, I think that we can hardly overestimate the importance of the fact that the new Commission is effectively starting with exactly the Polish presidency, due to both internal economical but also geopolitical reasons. And it's a really happy coincidence because, first of all, maybe unfortunately, we have one of the few strong and stable governments in Europe, in Warsaw now. It's not we are usually used to think. We are looking at two other capitals normally. And now we better not look that direction because it's a bit frightening. So we look with great hope at the Tusk government. And I'm not saying it because here it's full of people from the Tusk government, but because it's the fact. Then it's a Central European government. And it's the strongest Central European member state, both as, of course, the very size of the country, but also the economic dynamics, also the very fact that for quite a while now, Poland is showing us the way how to spend a lot on defense and yet grow economically quite fast. Which obviously should be the path to be followed by many other European countries, and a path that we are not used to once again. And when it comes to energy, when it comes to industry, I think Poland is very much representative of the whole region of Central Eastern Europe, struggling with transformation, to be very frank, and also for significant parts of industrialized Central Europe, like the eastern and not only the eastern part of Germany. So I think we should look positively at the fact that we have the Polish presidency. I would be happy if it took a year rather than half, but it won't happen. So I hope that we'll go fast enough within this short 6 months ahead.
That's a very good point about the political situation and the situation of strength that the Polish government finds itself in at the moment, in contrast to some other large countries in Europe at the moment. Georgios, from the perspective of energy companies, what would you like to see from the Polish presidency?
Well, the Polish presidency is coming in the first 6 months of the new Commission, and of course also Mr. Jorgensen talked about the first 100 days. So everybody's waiting to see improvements or proposals in the competitiveness and decarbonization, of course, and energy security as well. And we are waiting to see the final clean industrial deal proposal and the electrification action plan. So in that areas, which will be it will be the foundation of the new Commission, we have the Polish presidency. So what the sector is expecting to see promotion of electrification by users and industry. We need to see channeling of new investments towards new technologies, clean technologies. We need to see electrification, efficiency. Let us not forget efficiency is very important. So we need the consumer more involved in these discussions. Demand response. Mr. Birol talked about new technologies that Europe has to invest a lot. We always forget, but consumer is part of the discussion. We want to see the proposals to hit on cutting the red tape, and why not also into promoting new capital sources Why not possibly a capital market unification? All companies in Europe are finding funding in the US. Why not also fundamentally in Europe? So unifying the capital markets is very important. And at the end of the day, we're waiting to see also activities and actions and proposals which will really prioritize electricity, so reducing taxation from electricity versus the taxation that the member states have on the gas sector, which today is vice versa. I think this is coming in a very important moment, and all these directions are very important directions, and Poland will make an important element in these discussions.
Valborga, from the solar perspective, what are you looking for from the presidency?
So I know that Poland very well knows, as one of the major solar countries in Europe, how important flexibility is in the system. So I would hope that the Polish presidency will be putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that there's more flexibility in Europe's energy systems. By the way, we will be coming up with the latest European solar figures in next week, and it will be showing that Poland remains one of the main solar countries. So just for everyone who wants to join our webinar on the 17th of December. So flexibility, and that means flexibility not just from storage, from assets, from demand response, but electrification big times. And we also heard, in the previous speakers saying that there's no time to lose. So we urgently need to move to a highly electrified system. We're stalling at this point in time. We have some 23% of electrification in our system, whereas we need to be at 35% already in 2030. That's just around the corner. So we really need to act very, very fast in order to get all the benefits to the industry with affordable electricity prices. Now, we also heard Fatih Birol saying that the next years might make it a little easier because oil and gas prices will be going down, make it easier for industry to catch up. I do think we should not be complacent, but we should use that time to electrify industry. Very flexible industrial electrification demand is what we need. That's part of that flexibility I was talking about. So I do hope that the Polish presidency will be putting a focus on that. But then also electricity demand picking up and flexible electricity picking up on transport, flexible electricity demand picking up on the heating sector. So all of that is needed, and I do hope that the Polish presidency is making sure that we have the basis in order to go fast in this direction.
Giles, what are you looking for from the wind perspective?
All of the above, plus 4 things. 1, work with the European Commission on the immediate implementation of the EU Grid Action Plan. It's a great plan. It's got to be implemented. 2, get agreement in the Council, crucial for our economic security agenda, on the Commission's FDI screening proposal. It's a pity we've lost the annex under the Hungarian presidency. Let's hope the Polish presidency can bring it back and get agreement on that file. 3, agreement on the Energy Tax Directive. There is such a distortion out there today in the way we tax gas versus how we tax electricity. We're much gentler on taxation of gas than we are on taxation of electricity, and this is holding back investments in electrification, and we need a level playing field there. And finally, 4, George, you mentioned the Savings and Investments Union. Absolutely, somehow, and the Polish presidency should be good at this, find a way of getting more private savings and investments from the citizens of Europe and channeling that into industry. We have one big advantage in Europe, which we're not necessarily recognizing, which is interest rates are going up in the US probably, because the US is about to go into a hugely bullish economic space. Animal instincts. US economy may well overheat. We're lucky in that our interest rates are going down. They're firmly on a downward trajectory, and the differential between EU and US interest rates is something we should be exploiting to our advantage. But if we don't have a savings and investments union, we'll be trying to do that with two hands tied behind our backs.
That's an interesting aspect of competitiveness I haven't heard about before. Roman, we heard from the ministers at the beginning that two of the big focuses of the presidency will be energy security and also prices. So how would you say that safe supplies at affordable prices can be ensured? How can the Polish presidency achieve both of those goals from your perspective?
A simple operational efficiency of company. There are lots of cost-effective solutions that can be implemented, and quite a number of new solutions could be really delivered. I feel pretty comfortable with the ideas that were mentioned before as grid and renewables, because having a privilege of working for energy company, sort of a grid and renewables are second and third name of my company, which is not typical, really, for Poland. We a bit of a special animal in this respect. But I stress this element of time, already. I'm well aware of how challenging these issues are. I would strongly suggest to look for the solutions that could be a little bit less than perfect, but implemented sooner rather than later would deliver much more value than postponing it and trying to find the best solution that could make all the world blush in comparison to what we do. This time of finding some solution after due consideration, but delivering it in a fast way, can break these challenges that were mentioned before. I do agree with the idea of make or break. That's a European challenge. I quite understand it, and I take it literally.
Well, on this same subject of energy security, Radan, we heard from Fatih Birol and some of also the speakers at the beginning about the need to fully stop importing Russian fossil fuels, and we heard from the Director General that actually that's ticking up a bit, as I think maybe the guard is being let down. How do you see the situation right now in terms of energy security vis-a-vis Russia? And obviously Russia isn't the only geopolitical risk in the world right now. How do you see the current geopolitical risks to Europe's energy supply?
It's obvious that it's not a pretty situation we are facing, but starting from Russian dependency on fossil fuels, I think that it's already obvious that we can get rid of it. You know, I come from a country where the dependency on Russian gas was constantly more than 85%, up to 100 at certain moments, and it was so after the outbreak of the Russian aggression in Ukraine. That was the case in the spring of 22. And together with Poland, Bulgaria was among the first two countries to be cut off from Russian gas. By the way, from directly opposite strategic reasons. The Russians wanted to demonstratively punish Poland for being a leader of the support for Ukraine, and they wanted to use Bulgaria as the soft underbelly of Europe, using our dependency, so we should bow to them, and they could prove their case that most European countries cannot live without Russian gas. So the very arguments that we now hear in Hungary, in Slovakia, to a certain extent in the Czech Republic, they were all valid in Bulgaria in the spring of 22. And we showed ourselves and the rest of Europe that these arguments are not true. They're sounding scary, but they're simply not true. So Europe can do without Russian gas. There was the argument that pipeline gas is somehow even different from LNG, so you cannot live without pipeline gas. That's untrue once again. And I think that getting rid of the remnants of the Russian import in Europe is very important, and it should be our momentum and not theirs, because it will come either way. But it's better to come at the moment that we decide. As for the global situation, it's so insecure that we have to count at each moment, every political decision we take, on the fact that international markets are unpredictable. So there are high risks, and I assume that both the Commission and our national governments are living in the reality and making contingency planning go along.
Let's talk about some of the financing issues, because that's a big part of the competitiveness problem identified in the Draghi report. Giles, we heard from Nicola from the EIB some of the public funding options that are available. What would you say is the best way to finance the energy transition, and what is needed from European level to boost that finance and critically increase investor confidence?
You have to de-risk. Nicola explained how the European Investment Bank is helping to de-risk investments in clean energy, both in the production of clean energy and in the manufacturing capacity of the equipment you need to produce clean energy. There's lots of capital out there that wants to invest in the transition. You've got to make sure it's always going to have some form of revenue stream, that there's going to be payback on those investments. In wind, in most countries, we have it because most countries auction wind farms and offer a two-sided contract for difference, which gives the wind farm developer a very stable revenue perspective for the first 15 years of the project when they're paying back the finance. So the banks can see stable revenues, they see they're going to be paid back if they lend debt to the project, and the project gets financed. That's fine. Not all countries offer two-sided contracts for difference for wind. Some people say to us, oh, offshore wind is in a bit of trouble, isn't it? Because Denmark had some auction last week and nobody bid. Well, yes, nobody bid because Denmark has the wrong auction model. They have uncapped negative bidding. I won't begin to describe it to you, it's so bad. Suffice to say, it puts up costs for everybody involved, including the poor consumer. They've ignored what the European Commission have been saying consistently for many years now, which is that two-sided contracts for difference are the best way to finance clean energy production because it provides a perspective of stable revenues and crucially then minimizes the financing costs. You've got to remember, with a lot of clean energy kit, it's big upfront capex investment. It's not like how we used to do energy. Yeah, we used to do energy, well, there was some capex investment, of course, and there was a lot of opex costs. With our stuff, it's high capex investment, so minimizing those financing costs is absolutely key.
Georgios, you wanted to respond?
Yes, adding on what Giles said, I think we need also to have in our mind two things. And because also Mr. Birol spoken about not losing the chance of the new technologies. So when we're talking about funding, I think we have two baskets. The one is the EU funding. On the EU funding, I think strategically Europe needs to fund new technologies, non-bankable technologies, let me say like that, either new or non-bankable in the sense, let's say, cross-border big interconnections, which will be very much needed, or very new technologies. So this should be the focus for the EU funds, in my opinion, so to create tomorrow for Europe. And then when we're talking about private funding, and this is coupled with the industry as well, because also we're talking about the competitiveness of the industry, and we want, and we have cheap renewables, and we want to offer PPAs, And we do so. In Greece, we have done with the industry. But then again, not always is possible. So we need to think and design also hedging capabilities, long-term hedging, in order for those PPAs to arise and, of course, to be offered to our industry. The industrial users are our customers, and we don't want them leaving Europe. We want them here. We work together with the industry. But we want, therefore, when we're talking about financing, to think of clear rules, hedging possibilities, and private funding will come, for sure. And when we're talking about public funding, EU funding, new technologies, and strategic investments, cross-border and grids.
Valborga, what are some of the financing needs in particular for solar?
Yeah, maybe adding to what just had been said, when we talk about financing, obviously we need to first also look into how we can get an energy system that comes at least costs, apart from financing. And there, what we see today is, what is incredibly important is to make sure that the system as such is built in a way that comes at least costs. And I'm just referring again to what I was saying before, that is making sure that we have the right infrastructure and that we have enough flexibility, because that is bringing costs down. We did a study just before summer where we have been looking into what is needed in order to get the least costs. And that has to do a lot with making sure that wholesale prices are coming down with flexibility. That is, with flexibility. That's for the industries that need lower electricity prices. That's for consumers. But then also making sure that investors would still be investing in the new assets that we need. At the moment, we have record negative prices. In Europe, we have a lot of curtailment, both for wind, for solar, and that is not helping, obviously, the investment case. So with more flexibility, and that's what we've shown in that study, we're not just reducing wholesale prices, 25% by 2030, we're even reducing it by 33% by 2040, but at the same time, we're making it more interesting for investors to invest into solar, because curtailment is going down. All that waste of electricity that we see today is going down by almost 50% by 2030 if we invest in flexibility, and 60% by 2040. And the capture rates, what you can earn with solar investments, are going up. So, and that is leading us in the end to energy system costs, which are much below what we see today. We have savings of 30 billion by 2030 yearly, and 160 billion by 2040. So, let's look into what costs us least, and then let's discuss about finance. And there, maybe one point I want to make is regulatory stability is incredibly important to finance the energy transition. When we see, for example, the Czech Republic looking into retroactive changes of support mechanisms, that is a complete disaster and is not helping the case. And we see changes here and there also in other parts of Europe. So we need stability, because otherwise the financing costs are just going up.
You would think lessons had been learned from the Spanish case, but possibly not. I want to check quickly if we have any questions from the audience. Yes, I see one straight in the back. I think we have a microphone, a roving mic in. Otherwise, you can just project very loudly. Sanjeev. So, Radan, should there be better financing support, particularly for those for heating and cooling?
I think obviously yes, but as with many other things, it's a matter of whether we have developed or we could develop in the near future the proper financial instruments. When it comes to heating and cooling of households, it's extremely sensitive topic, and we have to be very careful. Ambitious, yes, because it's one of the biggest possible solutions of both our dependencies and the overall purchasing power of our households and of climate issues is efficiency in buildings. I've been the rapporteur in ENVI committee for the performance of buildings directive, so I have also the data in my mind. It's impossible to overestimate its importance, but, and here is the very big but. Politically, we can easily see that the population across Europe, in less wealthy and more wealthy states alike, has lost absolutely all tolerance towards pro-inflationary measures, towards any political measure increasing everyday prices and decreasing purchasing power. So we have to be extremely careful not to impose either further charges on the household bills or further charges on the household budgets when it comes to renovation. And that's why I say what we lack, it's the proper definition of the needed financial instruments. Because we can go forward without pro-inflationary measures, but it is not in the mindset of the European Commission. They have not done it before, and they need to learn. It's a very difficult thing for a bureaucrat to start learning at a certain point, but they need.
Well, before we close out, I want to ask one last question for Roman, and that's something that's particular to the Polish power sector, which we know has historically been very coal-dependent, and so Poland has particular challenges that other member states in the EU don't have. What would you say is needed in terms of capacity mechanisms to replace coal-fired plants in Poland? And would there be things that could be included in the Clean Industrial Deal that would be helpful in that respect?
At risk of being accused of too short-term view, really, the feasible alternative to coal in Poland is gas. Really. It's not zero emission type of fuel, but still what's important for me, let me share with you my view, is I'm far from being sort of dogmatic of being focused on the final objective of zero emission. Be it zero emission or 1.2% emission or 2% emission, doesn't make much difference to me. Usually the incremental cost of delivering this 99 or 98% of non-emission costs so much that it rarely pays off in this. For me, the immediate objective would be in Poland in two elements, really: gas-fueled energy generation and well-developed system of energy storage that will make possible to really manage the system in a time of low wind and solar type of capacity. Other issues than this are obviously important in the long term, but in the short term, efficiency of these two elements can deliver quite effective benefits that will change. And again, I'm far from defining my objective to come down to 10 or 8 or 5% in this. It doesn't matter too much. We need some sort of energy on a long-term way. I can live with the idea of some type of power generation from coal, assuming it's a marginal one.
Well, that's all the time we have for this first panel. I want to thank all the panelists for some really interesting insights in terms of what the situation we're in right now, what we can expect from the Commission and the Polish presidency as we move forward, and in particular from this Clean Industrial Deal strategy. So how about a round of applause for them? So we're now going to have the coffee break, which is downstairs. You can come back here in this room in 15 minutes, and we'll start the panel on energy storage.
Blessed is the one to share your power and your beauty.